I'm Emma Jean, and I learned early in life that appearances can be deceiving. Growing up in a modest apartment above my parents' small grocery store, I watched them work tirelessly, saving every penny they could. What our neighbors didn't know was that my parents were silent investors in several successful tech startups, teaching me that true wealth doesn't need to announce itself. "Remember, Emma," my father would say while counting the day's earnings. "Money talks, but wealth whispers." I took those words to heart, excelling in finance and economics while working part-time at our store. By 25, I had my MBA and had quietly built my own investment portfolio worth millions. But I kept my success private, preferring to be underestimated rather than invade. That's how I met Michael. It was a rainy Tuesday at the local coffee shop where I often worked on my laptop, managing my investments while appearing to be just another young professional. Michael rushed in, drenched and frantically checking his watch. "The register's card reader is down," the barista announced apologetically. Michael patted his pockets, realizing he'd left his wallet at home. I noticed his expensive but worn briefcase, a gift from someone special, perhaps, and his kind eyes. "I've got it," I said, stepping up to pay. "Oh no, I couldn't," he started to protest. "Consider it karma," I smiled. "Maybe you can return the favor someday." That favor came in the form of dinner the following week. Michael was charming, genuine, and refreshingly down to earth. He worked as a middle manager at Preston Financial, one of the city's largest investment firms. "It's not the most exciting job," he admitted over pasta, "but it's stable." I liked that he wasn't trying to impress me with false bravado. "Stability is underrated," I replied, thinking of my own carefully managed portfolio. What I didn't mention was that I already owned a significant number of shares in Preston Financial. I've been watching the company for months, noting its potential and its problems. The current management was old school, resistant to necessary technological updates that could streamline their operations. Our relationship blossomed naturally. Michael was kind, honest, and treated everyone with respect, from CEO to janitor. After a year of dating, he proposed with his grandmother's ring. "It's not much," he said nervously, "but it's been in the family for generations." "It's perfect," I assured him, meaning it. The ring's value wasn't in its modest diamond, but in its history of love. Then I met his family, and everything changed. Michael's sister, Catherine, worked as a senior analyst at Preston Financial. She'd fast-tracked her way up through office politics and family connections. From our first meeting, she made it clear she found me lacking. "So, what do you do?" she asked during our first family dinner, wine glass dangling from manicured fingers. "I'm a secretary at Rivera Corp," I said, using my cover job. I did actually work there part-time, mainly to maintain my understanding of day-to-day operations in the finance world. "Oh," Catherine exchanged looks with their mother, Eleanor. "How quaint." Michael always did have a soft spot for charity cases. Michael shifted uncomfortably but said nothing. That silence would become a pattern. After we married, Catherine's disdain grew more obvious. She worked at the same Preston Financial branch as Michael, and her comments became more frequent and cutting. "You know," she told Michael loudly at the office Christmas party, "Sandra from accounting is single now. She's a junior partner, Michael. Much more suitable." I maintained my composure, but Michael's lack of defense stung. He wanted to avoid conflict, he said later. "Keep the peace." What they didn't know was that I'd been steadily increasing my stake in Preston Financial. The company needed modernization, and I was positioning myself to make it happen. My cover as a part-time secretary at Rivera Corp allowed me to observe without suspicion. Then came the merger announcement. Preston Financial was joining forces with Rivera Corp, where I supposedly worked as a secretary. The move would double the company's market share, if it succeeded. Catherine was ecstatic, seeing an opportunity for advancement. Finally, a chance to show the board what real talent looks like, she bragged at family dinner. Unlike some people who can barely manage a filing cabinet. Eleanor, my mother-in-law, nodded approvingly. "It's important to have ambition, dear. Not everyone is content with mediocrity." Her eyes flickered to me. Michael studied his plate. What they didn't know was that I'd orchestrated the merger through shell companies and careful negotiations. I owned 40% of Rivera Corp, soon to be 40% of the merged Preston Rivera Financial Group. The annual company gala would announce the merger's completion. Catherine insisted on having it at her country club, making sure I knew the usual membership fee. But don't worry, she smiled sweetly, staff can use the service entrance. The night of the gala arrived. I wore a simple black dress, expensive but understated. Catherine sashayed around in designer silk, introducing Michael to more appropriate women. "Oh, Emma," she called out loudly as I stood alone near the appetizers. The catering staff needed help in the kitchen. I told them you feel right at home there. Laughter rippled through her circle of sycophants. Michael, across the room, pretended to be engrossed in conversation. That's when Mr. Harrison, the CEO of Rivera Corp., walked in. He spotted me immediately. "Mrs. John," he called out warmly. "The woman of the hour." Catherine frowned. "Excuse me?" Mr. Harrison continued, "Everyone, I'd like to introduce our new Chief Financial Officer and major shareholder, Emma John. Without her vision for this merger, none of us would be here tonight." The room fell silent. Catherine's champagne glass slipped from her fingers, shattering on the marble floor. "That's impossible," she stammered. "She's a secretary." "Oh, I did work at Rivera Corp.," I said calmly. "Best way to understand a company is from the ground up. But I've also been one of the largest shareholders in both Preston Financial and Rivera Corp. For the past 3 years. Eleanor's face had turned an interesting shade of purple. But the country club membership. "I've been a member for 5 years, I replied. "I'm on the board, actually. Interesting that we never ran into each other, Catherine." Michael pushed through the crowd, his face a mix of shock and something else. Shame, perhaps. "Emma," he started, "why didn't you tell me?" I met his gaze steadily. Would it have changed anything? Would you have finally stood up to them? Before he could answer, Catherine found her voice. "This is ridiculous. I've worked here for 8 years. I've earned my position." About that, Mr. Harrison interjected. "Mrs. Zhang has brought some concerning documents to our attention. Something about unauthorized trades under client accounts." Catherine's face went from red to white in an instant. "We'll need to discuss this in detail on Monday," he continued. "For now, I suggest you enjoy what might be your last company event." The rest of the evening passed in a blur of shocked faces and hasty congratulations. Eleanor and Catherine left early, claiming headaches. Michael kept trying to catch my eye, but I was busy with actual business discussions. Back at home, the silence was deafening. All this time, Michael finally said, "You let them treat you like that." "Why?" "Because I needed to see who people really were," I replied. "Money changes how people treat you. I wanted to know if I could count on you to stand by me regardless of my bank account." "And did I pass that test?" he asked quietly. I looked at him for a long moment. "What do you think?" The next morning, I headed to my new office early. The weekend security guard did a double take at my upgraded access badge. I was no longer entering through the side entrance as a visiting secretary. My phone had been buzzing nonstop since last night. Dozens of missed calls from Eleanor and Catherine, plus several texts from Michael. "Please come home. We need to talk. I know I messed up. Give me a chance to explain. Emma, I love you. Don't throw away our marriage over this." But I had work to do. The audit team had already gathered in the conference room, armed with the evidence I'd been collecting for months. "Mrs. John," Mr. Harrison greeted me. "Shall we begin?" The evidence against Catherine was damning. She'd been running a sophisticated scheme, making unauthorized trades using client funds, skimming profits, and covering her tracks through manipulated records. The amounts were staggering, over $5 million diverted over 3 years. The clients never noticed because she was careful to target dormant accounts, the head auditor explained. Mostly elderly investors who didn't check their statements regularly. My stomach turned. Elderly investors. A quick check confirmed my suspicion. One of the affected accounts belonged to Michael's grandmother, the same one whose ring I wore. Catherine had stolen nearly $200,000 from her own grandmother's retirement fund. As we reviewed the documents, my assistant interrupted. "Mrs. John, your mother-in-law is in the lobby. She's causing quite a scene." I sighed, "Send her up." Eleanor burst into the conference room, designer handbag swinging wildly. "How dare you? You manipulative. Scheming." "Mrs. Kennedy," Mr. Harrison cut in sharply. "This is a private meeting." "Private? Nothing's private anymore, thanks to this gold digger. Do you know what she's done to our family?" I met her gaze calmly. "Do you know what your daughter has done to your mother-in-law's retirement fund?" that stopped her cold. What? I slid the account statement across the table. Eleanor's face paled as she read the numbers. This must be a mistake, she whispered. No mistake, I replied. Catherine stole from her own grandmother and dozens of other retirees. Eleanor sank into a chair, her righteous anger deflating. But she said she was doing so well at work. She was, at fraud. I stood up. The police will be here within the hour. I suggest you get Catherine a good lawyer. As if on cue, Catherine burst into the room, Michael trailing behind her. You can't do this, she shrieked. I've work to do hard. Save it for the police, Mr. Harrison interrupted. They're very interested in your creative accounting. Michael stepped forward. Emma, please. There must be another way. She's my sister. I looked at my husband, really looked at him. And I'm your wife. Or did you forget that every time she humiliated me? I didn't know about any of this, he gestured helplessly at the documents. You didn't want to know, I corrected. Just like you didn't want to see how they treated me. It was easier to stay quiet, wasn't it? Catherine's face had taken on a calculating look. I have dirt on other people too. If I go down. Save your threats, I cut her off. Every trade, every transfer, every doctored document has been traced. Your dirt won't save you from prison. Eleanor began to cry. Think of our family name. Like you thought of your mother's retirement? I asked quietly. She trusted you with her account, Catherine. They all did. The police arrived minutes later. As they led Catherine away in handcuffs, she turned to Michael one last time. Are you really going to let her destroy our family? Michael stood frozen, torn between family loyalty and moral obligation. In that moment, I made my decision. Send the divorce papers to my lawyer, I told him. I'll have my things out by tonight. Emma, wait. He caught my arm. I know I failed you. But please, give me a chance to make it right. I gently removed his hand. You had 3 years of chances. Every time they belittled me, every time they treated me like dirt. Those were chances to stand up for your wife. You chose your side long ago. The aftermath was swift and merciless. Catherine pleaded guilty to multiple counts of fraud and theft. She was sentenced to 8 years in prison in order to repay millions in restitution. Eleanor and Michael's father had to sell their country club membership and downsize their home to help cover Catherine's legal fees. I threw myself into transforming Preston Rivera Financial. We implemented stricter oversight measures, modernized our technology, and established a restitution fund for Catherine's victims. Michael's grandmother was the first to receive full compensation. Months passed. I granted Michael an amicable divorce, even letting him keep the apartment. Some called me too generous, but I remembered the kind man who'd forgotten his wallet that rainy day. He wasn't a bad person, just a weak one. One evening, as I worked late in my office, my assistant announced an unexpected visitor, Michael's grandmother. She walked in slowly, leaning on her cane, my former engagement ring glinting on her thin finger. Michael had returned it to her after our divorce. I owe you a visit, she said, settling into a chair, to thank you for protecting my retirement and to apologize. You have nothing to apologize for, I assured her. Oh, but I do. She reached into her purse and pulled out a small box. Inside was the engagement ring. I want you to keep this. I couldn't possibly. You protected not just my savings, but my dignity. That's worth more than any ring. She smiled sadly. Besides, you were always more of a granddaughter to me than Catherine. After she left, I stood at my office window, watching the city lights flicker on. The ring sat on my desk, a reminder that true worth isn't in what we own, but in what we stand for. Eleanor still tries to contact me occasionally, usually when she needs money. Catherine writes from prison, alternating between threats and pleas for help with her appeal. I forward all communication to my lawyers. Michael sent me one final email. I finally understand what real strength looks like. It's not in keeping the peace, but in standing up for what's right. I'm sorry I learned that lesson too late. Take care of yourself, Emma. I did keep the ring, not as a reminder of what I'd lost, but of what I'd gained: self-respect, clarity, and the knowledge that sometimes the greatest wealth lies in being true to yourself. Last week, I approved a new financial literacy program for seniors, free workshops to help them protect their investments. We named it after Michael's grandmother. It felt right, turning past pain into future protection. The morning sun streams through my office window as I review the latest merger proposals. My father's words echo in my mind. Money talks, but wealth whispers. He was right, but he forgot one thing. Integrity roars. And that's a sound that even the highest walls of privilege can't silence.
10 years ago, I stood in this same living room, clutching my laptop with trembling hands while my father turned purple with rage. Now I was back, watching through the bay window as my parents entertained their country club friends, completely unaware that tomorrow would change everything. "Miss Sullivan?" My driver's voice pulled me from my memories. "Would you like me to wait?" I checked my watch, 6:55 p.m. Right on time for my father's weekly dinner party, where he would undoubtedly be lamenting his company's impending doom to anyone who would listen. "No need, James. This won't take long." The front door opened before I could knock. Olivia, my younger sister, froze mid-greeting, her perfect hostess smile faltering. "Sophie? What are you? You can't be here." I stepped past her into the foyer, noting how little had changed. The same pretentious artwork, the same crystal chandelier, the same photos on the wall, though I'd been carefully cropped out of most of them. "Actually, I have an invitation." I pulled the cream-colored envelope from my bag. Dad's secretary sent it last week. Something about discussing the future of Harrison Electronics. Olivia's face paled. She'd always been Dad's favorite, the obedient daughter who joined the family business straight out of college and never questioned his outdated methods. "You shouldn't have come. He's not ready to see you, not after. After he threw me out for daring to start my own tech company?" I finished quietly. "Or after he told everyone I was dead to him?" The sound of laughter from the living room cut through our tension. I recognized my father's booming voice, still full of forced confidence despite his company's crisis. "Harrison Electronics has weathered worse storms. We just need the right investor to understand our potential." Olivia grabbed my arm. "Please, Sophie. He's been under so much stress. The company's stock is tanking, the board is threatening to remove him." "I know." I gently removed her hand. "That's why I'm here." The living room fell silent as I entered. My mother's champagne glass slipped from her fingers, shattering on the hardwood floor. My father stood frozen by the fireplace, his face draining of color. "Hello, Dad," I said calmly. "I got your invitation to discuss investment opportunities." 10 years seemed to melt away. Suddenly I was 22 again, trying to explain my vision for a revolutionary app that could transform mobile security. I'd spent months developing the prototype, certain that Harrison Electronics could evolve beyond manufacturing outdated security systems. "This is the future, Dad," I'd pleaded, showing him my business plan. "We could be at the forefront of digital security." But Harrison Electronics didn't do digital nonsense, as my father called it. They made physical security systems, the same ones they'd been making for 30 years. When I announced I was leaving to start my own company, using my trust fund as seed money, he'd exploded. "No daughter of mine will waste time on tech startups." The words still echoed in my head. "If you walk out that door, don't ever come back." I'd walked out anyway, leaving behind my family, my inheritance, and my place in the Harrison dynasty. My mother had cried, Olivia had begged me to reconsider, but my father's words were final. "Get out. You're dead to us." Now, a decade later, I stood before them in an Armani suit that cost more than their monthly country club dues, watching my father struggle to form words. What are you doing here?" he finally managed. I settled into an armchair, crossing my legs carefully. "Like I said, I received an invitation to discuss Harrison Electronics' future. Your secretary was quite persistent about finding investors." My mother had recovered enough to start gathering champagne glass shards with trembling hands. "Darling, perhaps we should discuss this in private." "Why?" I smiled at the gathered guests, all longtime family friends who'd watched me grow up, then watched my father erase me from family history. "I'm sure everyone here knows about Harrison Electronics' situation. After all, the stock price drop made quite a splash in the business news." "You have no right," my father's voice shook with familiar rage. "This is a private matter." "Actually," I cut in smoothly, "as CEO of Quantum Security Solutions, I have every right to evaluate potential acquisitions. Your board has been quite cooperative in sharing financial details." The room went deadly quiet. One of my father's golf buddies choked on his drink, Quantum security? He sputtered. The tech company worth $4.2 billion at last valuation, I confirmed. Though that's probably old news. Our new quantum encryption patent should boost that considerably. My father gripped the mantelpiece, his knuckles white. Quantum Security Solutions was the largest digital security company in the country. The same company he'd dismissed as a foolish pipe dream 10 years ago. That's your company? Olivia whispered. The very same startup Dad said would fail within 6 months. I turned back to my father. The one you said would destroy my life and waste my future. Mother stepped forward, ever the society hostess trying to smooth rough waters. Sophie, darling, your father was just trying to protect you. The tech industry is so unstable. Is it? I raised an eyebrow. Because Harrison Electronics stock has dropped 60% this year, while Quantum's has tripled. I pulled out my phone, checking the time. But you're right, this is a conversation for tomorrow's board meeting. I just wanted to stop by and... I paused, savoring the moment. See the house one last time before the ownership changes. My father's face turned an alarming shade of red. What are you talking about? Oh, didn't the board tell you? They've accepted my offer to buy controlling interest in Harrison Electronics. Tomorrow morning, we'll sign the papers transferring ownership to Quantum Security Solutions. I stood up, brushing invisible lint from my sleeve. I thought you should hear it from me first. After all, we're still family, aren't we? The irony hung heavy in the air. My father swayed slightly, looking like he might collapse. Olivia rushed to support him while my mother pressed a hand to her chest, tears welling in her eyes. You can't, he whispered. This company, it's my life's work. Was your life's work, I corrected gently. Now it's just another failing business that needs modernization. Fortunately, Quantum specializes in bringing outdated systems into the digital age. I moved toward the door, pausing to look at the family photos on the wall. The ones I'd been erased from. The board meeting is at 9 a.m. sharp. Try not to be late, Dad. It would be awkward for the outgoing CEO to miss his own replacement ceremony. Sophie, please, my mother called after me, her voice breaking. We can talk about this. Like you talked about it 10 years ago? I turned back one last time. When you stood silent while he threw me out. When you let him cut me off without a word. I shook my head. Tomorrow isn't about family, Mother. It's just business. That's what Dad always wanted, isn't it? As I walked out, I heard my father's golf buddy whisper, Harrison, did you really kick out a billionaire tech genius? I smiled, climbing into my waiting car. Tomorrow would be interesting indeed. James looked at me in the rearview mirror as we pulled away. Everything all right, Miss Sullivan? I watched my childhood home disappear behind us, thinking about the scared young woman I'd been 10 years ago, carrying nothing but a laptop and a dream. Everything's perfect, James. Though we should stop by the office. I have some paperwork to review before tomorrow's acquisition. After all, I had a family company to dismantle. The Harrison Electronics boardroom hadn't changed in 10 years. The same mahogany table dominated the space. The same leather chairs lined its edges. Even the same outdated security keypads flanked the doors. A perfect symbol of my father's resistance to change. I arrived early, watching through my laptop's camera as board members filed in. They didn't recognize me sitting quietly in the corner, dressed in a sleek black suit that cost more than their monthly salaries. To them, I was probably just another young tech executive, here to witness Harrison Electronics' fall. My father arrived last, looking like he hadn't slept. Olivia trailed behind him, clutching a stack of papers. Still playing the role of devoted daughter and executive assistant. Our mother had apparently decided to skip the bloodbath entirely. Where is everyone? Dad demanded, looking around the half-empty boardroom. We're supposed to have a full board for this vote. The other members will be attending virtually, explained Walter Chin, the board chairman. Given the sensitive nature of today's meeting. My father's face darkened. Cowards. Too afraid to look me in the eye while they sell my company to some tech upstart. I closed my laptop with a soft click. Actually, they're attending virtually because Quantum Security Solutions has already modernized their home offices with our latest security systems. Unlike this room, which still uses keypads from 2010. The silence was spectacular. My father spun around, his face draining of color as he recognized me. Olivia dropped her papers, sending them scattering across the floor. What is she doing here? Dad's voice shook with rage. Walter cleared his throat. Mr. Harrison, I'd like to introduce Sophie Sullivan, CEO of Quantum Security Solutions. Though I believe you already know each other. Sullivan. One of the board members frowned. I thought your daughter's name was Harrison? I changed it, I said calmly, standing up. The day my father threw me out for daring to suggest that digital security was the future. This is ridiculous, my father sputtered. I demand she leave immediately. This is a conflict of interest. Actually, Walter cut in, Ms. Sullivan has every right to be here. As of this morning, Quantum Security Solutions owns 47% of Harrison Electronics shares. With the board's vote today, that will become a controlling interest. I walked to the head of the table, my father's usual seat. Shall we begin? I've prepared a detailed presentation on Quantum's plans for modernizing Harrison Electronics. You can't do this, my father's voice had turned pleading. This company, it's been in our family for 3 generations. Had been, I corrected, pulling up my presentation, until you decided family was less important than controlling everything. I turned to the board members, both present and virtual. Let's talk about the future of Harrison Electronics. Over the next hour, I laid out Quantum's vision. We would transform Harrison's outdated physical security systems into a hybrid platform, integrating their hardware expertise with our cutting-edge software. The stock price would stabilize. Jobs would be saved. Harrison Electronics wouldn't die, it would evolve. This is a hostile takeover, my father interrupted, his face flushed. She's trying to destroy everything I built. No, Dad, I said quietly. I'm trying to save it, just like I tried 10 years ago. I pulled up the next slide. My original business plan from a decade ago, the one he'd dismissed without reading. This was my proposal back then. Digital security integration, cloud-based monitoring, AI-driven threat detection. Everything I built at Quantum could have been Harrison Electronics' future. I met his eyes steadily. But you were too proud to listen to your daughter. Olivia spoke up from her corner, her voice small. The board already has the votes, doesn't it? That's why the others aren't here in person. I nodded. They voted this morning. It was unanimous. Traitors, my father hissed, looking around the room. After everything I've done for this company. The company is failing, George, Walter said firmly. We're 3/4 away from bankruptcy. Miss Sullivan's offer isn't just generous. It's our only hope for survival. My father slumped in his chair, suddenly looking every bit of his 65 years. And what happens to me? That depends, I said, closing my laptop. Quantum could use someone with experience in physical security systems. A consulting position, perhaps. If you're willing to finally learn some new tricks. He stared at me, recognition slowly dawning. They were the same words he'd spat at me 10 years ago, when I'd begged him to let me show him how technology could transform our family business. You planned this, he whispered. All of it. You waited until we were vulnerable. No, Dad. You did this. Every time you refused to adapt, every time you chose pride over progress. I stood up, smoothing my jacket. I just built something better while you weren't watching. Olivia stepped forward, tears in her eyes. What about me? I've given everything to this company. I softened slightly. You have valuable experience, Olivia. If you're willing to learn our systems, there could be a place for you at Quantum. Absolutely not, our father roared, finding his anger again. I forbid it. No Harrison will work for. That's enough. I cut him off, my voice sharp. You don't get to forbid anything anymore. The company is mine now. And unlike you, I don't throw family members out for having different ideas. The rest of the meeting passed in a blur of signatures and legal documents. By noon, Harrison Electronics was officially a subsidiary of Quantum Security Solutions. As the board members filed out, I remained seated, looking at the empty chair where my father had sat for 30 years. Sophie. Olivia lingered by the door. Did you really plan this all along? I thought about the scared young woman I'd been, sleeping on friends' couches, coding through the night while building Quantum from scratch. No. I planned to build something meaningful. Something that would change the world. I met her eyes. The fact that it let me save the family company is just ironic justice. Later that evening, as I packed up my father's office, my mother appeared in the doorway. She looked older, more fragile than the night before. I should have stopped him, she said quietly. 10 years ago when he threw you out. I should have said something. I carefully wrapped the photo of my grandfather, the original founder of Harrison Electronics, in bubble wrap. Yes, you should have. Can you ever forgive us? I placed the wrapped photo in my box, thinking about the decade of silence, the missed holidays, the family photos I'd been erased from. This isn't about forgiveness, Mom. It's about building something new from the ashes of Dad's pride. I picked up the box, heading for the door. The company will survive. It will grow. And maybe if you're all willing to finally change, our family can too. 3 months later, I sat in my new office, formerly my father's, reviewing the latest integration reports. Harrison Electronics stock had stabilized. Our hybrid security systems were generating buzz in the industry. And my father, surprisingly, had accepted the consulting position, though he still refused to meet my eyes in meetings. Olivia had thrown herself into learning our systems, showing an aptitude for technology that would have shocked our father 10 years ago. She was currently running our hardware division, bridging the gap between old and new. My phone buzzed, a message from my mother. Family dinner this Sunday? Your father agreed to try. I stared at the message, thinking about the long road ahead. Then I glanced at my grandfather's photo, now hanging on my office wall. He'd built this company from nothing, driven by a vision of the future. Just like I had. Okay, I typed back. But we're having it at my house. Time for some new traditions. I turned back to my work, surrounded by the empire I'd built and the family legacy I'd saved. Sometimes success isn't just about proving people wrong. It's about being strong enough to help them change. Even if it takes 10 years and a corporate takeover to do it. I adjusted my blazer in the elevator mirror, watching the numbers climb toward the top floor of Maverick Enterprises headquarters. The annual shareholders meeting would start in 20 minutes, and my sister Julia was probably already holding court, basking in her role as CFO of our family's precious company. My phone buzzed, a message from my assistant. Everything's loaded for the presentation. Waiting for your signal. I smiled, thinking about the flash drive in my purse and what it would reveal. 8 years of careful planning was about to pay off. The elevator doors opened onto the executive floor, and immediately I heard Julia's distinctive laugh floating down the hallway. Oh my God, can you believe she actually showed up? Probably hoping to land some consulting work. I rounded the corner to find her perched on the edge of a conference table, surrounded by her usual entourage of yes-men and corporate climbers. She looked exactly as I remembered. Perfectly styled hair, designer suit, and an expression of practiced disdain. Olivia. She air-kissed my cheek, her perfume overwhelming. We didn't think you'd make it, given how busy you must be with your, what are you calling it these days? Your boutique consulting practice. I touched the flash drive in my pocket. Summit Consulting Group. But you knew that, Julia. Right. She waved dismissively. Must be so challenging running such a small operation. How many employees do you have now? 6. Before I could answer, our father's booming voice filled the room. There's my girls. Harrison Carter strode in, every inch the powerful CEO in his bespoke suit. Julia, sweetheart, the quarterly projections look fantastic. The board's going to love the new acquisition strategy. Then his eyes fell on me and his smile dimmed slightly. Olivia. Didn't expect to see you here. Don't usually get many small business owners at these meetings. 8 years ago, that subtle dismissal would have cut deep. But I'd spent those years building something they couldn't begin to comprehend. I still own shares, Dad, I reminded him quietly. Even if you think I wasted my MBA by starting my own company instead of joining the family business. He had the grace to look slightly uncomfortable. Now, nobody said you wasted anything. It's just, well, Maverick Enterprises is a Fortune 500 company. We operate on a different level than small consulting firms. Julia smirked. Don't be mean, Daddy. I'm sure Olivia's little company is very cute. Not everyone's cut out for big business. I thought about the documents waiting on my flash drive. Proof of exactly what kind of business I'd built while they weren't watching. You'd be surprised what I'm cut out for. The boardroom filled quickly with shareholders and board members. I took my seat near the back, watching Julia preen at our father's right hand. She'd always been his golden child, the one who followed his path without question, who never challenged the status quo. "Ladies and gentlemen," my father began, standing at the podium, "welcome to Maverick Enterprises' annual shareholders meeting. As you know, we've had another record year." I tuned out his self-congratulatory speech, remembering the day I'd told him I was leaving the company to start my own consulting firm. The disappointment in his eyes had been crushing. "You're throwing away everything I built for you," he'd said. "All because you think you know better than 30 years of business experience." What he didn't understand was that I'd seen the future of consulting while working in Maverick's strategy department. Digital transformation, AI integration, data-driven decision-making, all opportunities they were too set in their ways to grasp. Julia's voice pulled me back to the present. "And now, I'm excited to announce Maverick's biggest move yet. Our acquisition of Anderson Technologies. This will position us as the leading player in traditional consulting services." I had to bite back a laugh. Traditional consulting. They still didn't understand how the industry was evolving. "Of course," Julia continued, shooting me a smug look, "this kind of deal might be a little hard for some of our shareholders to comprehend. It's not exactly the same as advising small businesses on their social media strategy." Scattered laughter rippled through the room. I stayed silent, watching the clock. "Now," my father took the podium again, "before we move to the next item on our agenda, I see we have a last-minute addition to the presentation schedule." He frowned at his notes. "Someone from Summit Consulting Group." Julia nearly choked on her water. "Oh, this should be good. Going to pitch us your services, sis?" I stood up calmly, making my way to the front of the room. "Actually, I'm here to discuss Summit Group's recent acquisitions." I plugged my flash drive into the laptop, pulling up the first slide. Specifically, our holdings in Maverick Enterprises. My father's frown deepened. "Holdings? You have a few thousand shares from your trust fund, nothing more." That was true 8 years ago. I clicked to the next slide. "But Summit Group has been quietly buying shares through various subsidiaries. As of this morning, we own 47% of Maverick Enterprises." The room erupted in whispers. Julia's perfect composure cracked. "That's impossible. We would have known." "Would you?" I pulled up another slide showing Summit Group's complex ownership structure. "You were so busy laughing at my small consulting firm that you never bothered to look into what I was really building." My father gripped the podium, his knuckles white. "Summit Group. That's the company that's been buying up our competitors. The one that's been revolutionizing the industry with AI consulting platforms. The very same." I met his eyes steadily. "The company you said would never succeed because it wasn't doing things the traditional way." Julia stood up so quickly her chair toppled backward. "This is ridiculous. Daddy, she's lying. She couldn't possibly." Actually, a new voice cut in from the doorway. "She's not lying at all." Marcus Chin, chairman of the board, walked in with a thick folder under his arm. "I've spent the morning reviewing Summit Group's holdings. Not only do they own nearly half of Maverick, but they also control the Anderson Technologies acquisition you were so excited about." My father's face had turned an alarming shade of red. "You bought Anderson? The company we've been negotiating with for months." 3 weeks ago, I confirmed. They were quite happy to accept Summit's offer, especially after seeing our digital transformation results with other clients. "But Summit is just a small consulting firm," Julia protested weakly. "A dozen employees at most." I clicked to the next slide, showing Summit Group's true organizational structure. Thousands of employees across 6 continents. A client list that included half of the Fortune 100. Cutting-edge AI platforms that were redefining the consulting industry. "Still think I'm just running a cute little company, Julia?" The room had gone completely silent. Every eye was fixed on the screen, taking in the reality of what I'd built while they were busy mocking my choices. "This is why I left Maverick," I said quietly. "Because you were all so convinced you knew everything about business that you couldn't see the industry changing around you. While you were protecting your traditional consulting model, I was building the future." My father seemed to age 10 years in front of me. "Why are you doing this? To humiliate us?" "No." I switched to the final slide. "I'm doing this to save Maverick Enterprises from itself." The acquisition offer appeared on the screen, and the room erupted in chaos. The numbers on the screen told a story my family couldn't ignore. Summit Group's offer to acquire Maverick Enterprises, $2.8 billion, a 40% premium over the current stock price. This is absurd. Julia's voice shook as she stared at the presentation. You can't seriously expect us to believe that your little consulting firm has billions in acquisition power. I pulled up the next slide. Summit Group's financial statements. Summit did $4.3 billion in revenue last year. Our AI-driven consulting platforms serve over 60% of Fortune 500 companies. While you were busy protecting Maverick's traditional consulting model, I was reinventing the entire industry. My father had sunk into his chair, looking shell-shocked as he scanned the numbers. But how? When did you? 8 years ago when I left Maverick, I had a vision for the future of consulting. AI-powered analytics, predictive modeling, digital transformation at scale. I walked slowly around the boardroom table. You called it a pipe dream. Said I was naive to think technology could replace human expertise. Marcus Chin cleared his throat. The board has reviewed Summit Group's offer. Given Maverick's recent performance challenges and the changing industry landscape, we believe it merits serious consideration. Julia spun toward him, her perfectly maintained composure cracking. You can't be serious. This is obviously some kind of hostile takeover attempt. Actually, I interrupted, it's a rescue mission. I clicked to the next slide, displaying Maverick's declining market share. Your client base has shrunk 30% in the past 3 years. Your methodologies are outdated. Half your senior consultants are nearing retirement, and you have no digital strategy to attract new talent. The room fell silent as the reality of Maverick's situation sank in. Board members shifted uncomfortably in their seats, avoiding my father's gaze. Summit Group's offer includes complete digital transformation of Maverick's operations, I continued. We'll retain all current employees, modernize your systems, and integrate your client base with our AI platforms. Instead of becoming obsolete, you'll be part of the industry's future. My father finally found his voice. And what happens to current management? That depends. I met his eyes steadily. Are you finally ready to admit that maybe your daughter understands modern business after all? Before he could respond, the boardroom door burst open. My mother rushed in looking flustered. Harrison, what's going on? Julia called me crying about some kind of takeover. She stopped short when she saw me at the podium. Olivia, what are you doing here? Hello, Mom. I smiled sadly. Remember when you told me I was making the biggest mistake of my life by leaving Maverick? That I'd never succeed without the family name behind me? She had the grace to look embarrassed. Darling, we were just trying to protect you. No, I cut in firmly. You were trying to control me. To force me into the same box that's now killing this company. I turned back to the board. Summit's offer expires in 48 hours. We've already secured support from major shareholders, and we own Anderson Technologies, your only potential white knight. The choice is simple, evolve or die. Julia stood up, her voice desperate. Daddy, you can't let her do this. I'm the one who stayed. I'm the one who followed your path. And look where that path has led, Marcus Chin interjected. Declining revenue, lost market share, and a complete failure to adapt to industry changes. He turned to my father. George, it's time to face reality. Summit Group isn't just offering to buy Maverick, they're offering to save it. My father looked old suddenly, his shoulders sagging under the weight of his pride. All these years, you were building this empire while we mocked your choices? I tried to tell you, I said quietly. The day I left, I begged you to look at my business plan, to understand that consulting was changing. But you couldn't see past your own certainty. The board will need to vote, Marcus announced. Though given Summit's existing ownership stake and the support of other major shareholders, I believe the outcome is clear. Julia slumped in her chair, tears streaking her perfect makeup. This isn't fair. I did everything right. Everything you wanted. That was the problem, I told her gently. You were so busy doing what Dad wanted that you never stopped to think about what the business needed. Over the next hour, the board reviewed Summit's offer in detail. My mother sat silently in the corner, watching her carefully constructed world reshape itself. My father aged years before my eyes as he realized how completely he'd underestimated his own daughter. The vote was unanimous. Summit Group's acquisition of Maverick Enterprises will proceed, Marcus announced. Effective immediately, Olivia Carter will assume the role of CEO for the combined entity. I stood at the podium looking at my broken family. I know this is hard to accept, but Maverick doesn't need to die. It needs to transform. And I'm offering you all a chance to be part of that transformation. What do you mean? Julia asked, her voice small. You're a brilliant financial analyst, Julia. Your problem was never capability, it was perspective. If you're willing to learn our methods, to embrace change instead of fighting it, there's a place for you at Summit. I turned to my father. The same goes for you, Dad. Your experience is valuable, but only if you're ready to admit that experience doesn't mean always being right. He met my eyes for the first time since the vote. You really built all this? While we were laughing at your small company? I built it because you laughed, I corrected him. Every dismissive comment, every mockery of my vision, just made me more determined to succeed. 3 months later, I sat in my new office, formerly my father's, reviewing the integration progress. Maverick's transformation was exceeding expectations. Julia had thrown herself into learning our AI platforms. Her competitive nature finally focused on innovation instead of tradition. My father had taken longer to come around. But last week, after sitting in on a client presentation showcasing our predictive analytics capabilities, he'd stopped by my office. I was wrong, he'd said simply. About everything. About you. I looked up from my laptop. I know. Your grandfather founded Maverick 60 years ago because he saw the future of business consulting. He wasn't afraid to be different. He picked up the photo of Grandpa that still sat on my desk. You're more like him than I ever was. Now, watching the sunset from the office I'd once been told I'd never occupy, I thought about success and legacy. My phone buzzed with a message from my mother. Family dinner Sunday? Your father's finally ready to hear about how you built Summit. Really hear it. I smiled, thinking about the scared young woman I'd been 8 years ago, walking away from everything I'd been raised to want. She'd had no idea that walking away would lead her right back here. Not as the dutiful daughter following orders, but as the visionary leader her grandfather would have been proud of. Sunday works, I texted back. But let's have it at my house. I'll show you what a small consulting firm can do. I turned back to my work, surrounded by the empire I'd built while they weren't watching. Sometimes the biggest success isn't proving people wrong. It's being strong enough to prove yourself right. Even if it takes 8 years and a corporate takeover to do it. The Anderson family reunion was in full swing at my Uncle Philip's mansion, champagne flowing as freely as the insults they loved to throw my way. I stood by the window watching the city skyline, particularly the tallest building in the center, soon to be the stage for my long-awaited revelation. Still working as a secretary, Sophie? My cousin Victoria's voice dripped with false sympathy as she approached, designer heels clicking on marble floors. What's it been now, 5 years at that little consulting firm? I sipped my champagne, hiding my smile. Little did she know that little consulting firm was just a front office for Anderson Global Enterprises, my company, though none of them knew that yet. 6 years actually, I corrected her mildly. How's the family business? Victoria preened, adjusting her Cartier bracelet. Extraordinary as always. Daddy's about to close the biggest deal in Anderson Corp's history. We're acquiring the Preston building. I nearly choked on my champagne. They really had no idea. The Preston building, the city's tallest skyscraper and crown jewel of the business district, had indeed been sold. To me. Through a series of shell companies and careful maneuvering, I'd bought it 3 months ago. But they wouldn't find that out until tonight. That's ambitious, I managed. Of course you wouldn't understand the complexities, my cousin Marcus chimed in, joining us with his usual smug grin. Real estate at this level requires actual business acumen, not just typing skills. I thought about the stack of documents sitting in my real office. The one with my name on the door, not the modest receptionist's desk they thought I occupied. Documents that would soon reveal just how much business acumen I really had. The Anderson family had always been about appearances. 3 generations of real estate developers, each more ambitious than the last. My father had been the black sheep, more interested in teaching than business. When he died 10 years ago, Leaving me his small inheritance, the family had written us both off as failures. Sophie could have had a real career with us, Uncle Philip's voice boomed across the room. But she chose to waste her business degree answering phones. Just like her father wasted his potential teaching instead of joining the family business. There it was, the familiar jab at my father. I gripped my glass tighter, remembering the day they'd offered me a position at Anderson Corp after his funeral. File clerk, Uncle Philip had said magnanimously. Everyone starts at the bottom. Well, except Victoria and Marcus, of course. They have natural talent. I'd declined, much to their shock and amusement. Instead, I'd taken my father's modest inheritance and done something they'd never expect. I'd started investing. Carefully. Quietly. Always through different companies, different names. At least tell me you're dating someone successful, Aunt Patricia sighed, eyeing my simple black dress. You're not getting any younger, dear. I thought about the closet full of designer clothes in my penthouse apartment, the cars in my private garage, the properties I owned across the city. All hidden, all part of the careful facade I'd maintained for 6 years. No one special, I said smoothly. I'm focused on work. Answering phones requires focus now? Marcus snickered. How challenging. Meanwhile, I just closed a deal worth $50 million. You mean the Wilson Heights project? The one I'd secretly financed through a subsidiary, then sold back to Anderson Corp at a premium? The deal that had earned me, not him, $20 million in profit? That's impressive, I said instead. Speaking of impressive, Victoria turned to address the room, commanding attention like she'd been taught since birth. Daddy's announcement about the Preston Building acquisition? Not yet, Princess, Uncle Philip cut her off. We're waiting for the evening news. Channel 5 is doing a special report on Anderson Corp's latest triumph. I checked my watch. 7:55 p.m. Right on schedule. The family gathered around the massive TV in Uncle Philip's study, champagne glasses raised in anticipation. Victoria and Marcus stood front and center, already practicing their camera-ready smiles. 10 years ago, Uncle Philip began his practice speech. When my dear brother chose academia over real estate, I promised myself our family's legacy wouldn't suffer. Looking at my children, at what we've built. He gestured to Victoria and Marcus. I know the Anderson name is stronger than ever. My phone buzzed silently in my pocket. A text from my real assistant. Everything's in place, Ms. Anderson. Channel 5 has the press release. Building lights programmed for 8 p.m. Turn it on. Victoria squealed as the news intro music played. The reporter appeared on screen, standing in front of the Preston Building. Breaking news in the business world tonight as the city's skyline prepares for a historic change. The Preston Building, our city's most iconic structure, has indeed been sold. But not to Anderson Corp as widely speculated. The room went silent. Uncle Philip's champagne glass froze halfway to his lips. What? Marcus stammered. That's impossible. The deal is done. We signed. Sources confirm, the reporter continued, that the building was acquired 3 months ago by Anderson Global Enterprises, a previously unknown player in the real estate market. The company, reportedly worth over $4 billion, has been operating in secret for the past 6 years, quietly acquiring properties across the city. Victoria grabbed her father's arm. Daddy, what's happening? Who are these people? They can't use our name. I moved closer to the window, waiting for the moment I'd planned for years. In a shocking twist, the reporter went on, Anderson Global Enterprises isn't just taking over the Preston Building. They've also been buying up controlling interests in multiple local real estate companies, including, sources say, Anderson Corp itself. The room erupted in chaos. Uncle Philip was shouting about lawyers. Marcus was frantically checking his phone. Victoria was nearly hyperventilating. But the biggest revelation, the reporter smiled, is yet to come. In exactly 1 minute, the Preston Building will light up with the name of Anderson Global's mysterious CEO, a name that might be familiar to local real estate insiders. 1 minute, I whispered to myself, watching the building through the window. This has to be a mistake, Uncle Philip was saying. Some upstart trying to trade on our name. I'll have them shut down by morning. I turned to face my family, 6 years of hidden success finally ready to be revealed. Actually, Uncle Philip, you won't. They all turned to stare at me, confusion written across their faces. What are you babbling about? Marcus sneered. Go back to your little desk and let the real business people handle this. 3, 1, I counted softly. The Preston building blazed to life, my name written in lights across its crown. Sophie Anderson, Anderson Global Enterprises. The silence that followed was deafening. For 30 seconds no one in that room moved. All eyes darted between my name blazing across the city skyline and my face, as if trying to reconcile the secretary they'd mocked with the CEO who'd just outmaneuvered them all. Uncle Philip recovered first, his face turning an alarming shade of purple. What is this? He demanded. What have you done? I set down my champagne glass carefully. Business, I said simply. Isn't that what you always wanted me to learn? This is impossible, Marcus sputtered. You're a secretary. You answer phones. You. Actually, I smiled. I own the company where you think I answer phones. Horizon Consulting is one of my subsidiaries, just like the investment firm that financed your Wilson Heights project, and the shell company that now owns 52% of Anderson Corp's shares. Victoria collapsed onto the nearest chair, her perfectly manicured hand clutching her throat. 52%? But that would mean that I own controlling interest in your company? I nodded. Yes. I've been buying shares through various entities for the past 3 years. Your board approved the final transfer this morning. The board. Uncle Philip's voice shook. Pie board. I pulled out my phone and opened my emails. Would you like to see the votes? It was quite decisive. Apparently your leadership has been concerning to them lately. You can't do this. Marcus stepped forward, trying to loom over me. We're Anderson Corporation. We're the Anderson family. You're just what? I cut him off. Just the daughter of the brother you all dismissed? Just the cousin you mocked for 6 years? Just the woman who built a $4 billion company while you were busy bragging about deals I secretly financed? My phone buzzed again. My assistant's message read, Channel 5 going live from the Preston building lobby in 2 minutes. Full reveal package ready. I turned up the TV volume. The reporter was now standing in the building's magnificent lobby, surrounded by Anderson Global logos that had been unveiled moments ago. We're here with exclusive details about the remarkable rise of Sophie Anderson and Anderson Global Enterprises, she began. Sources reveal that the company has been operating in stealth mode since 2017, systematically acquiring properties and businesses across the city. The screen filled with graphics showing my company's holdings, dozens of buildings, companies, and developments that I'd acquired over the years. Including, I noticed with satisfaction, several that Marcus and Victoria had tried to claim credit for. This is corporate theft, Uncle Philip declared, but his voice wavered. We'll fight this in court. With what evidence? I asked calmly. Every acquisition was legal. Every share purchase documented. Your own board approved the transfers. Face it, Uncle Philip. You were so busy looking down on me, you never bothered to look up and see what I was building. Victoria suddenly gasped, staring at her phone. The Wilson Heights project. The financing. That was you? Among others, I nodded. Remember that brilliant deal you closed last summer, Marcus? The Riverside development? I own that too. Sold it to you at a 40% markup. Marcus sank into a chair, his face ashen. All this time, when we were bragging about our deals. You were actually bragging about mine, I finished for him. Ironic, isn't it? Aunt Patricia, who had been unusually quiet, finally spoke up. But why? Why go to all this trouble? Why not just tell us who you were? I walked to the window, looking out at my name illuminating the night sky. Would you have believed me? Would you have respected what I built if you'd known it was me building it? The silence was answer enough. 6 years ago, I continued, when you offered me that file clerk position, you said everyone starts at the bottom. But that wasn't true, was it? Victoria and Marcus started in executive positions. They got every advantage, every connection, every opportunity. They're Andersons, Uncle Philip said weakly. And what am I? I turned back to face them. My father was your brother. I have the same blood, the same name, the same business degree. The only difference was that my father chose to teach instead of join your precious company. Your father was... Uncle Philip began. Was brilliant. I cut him off sharply. He taught me that success isn't about the name you inherit. It's about what you build with it. And while you were all busy protecting your legacy, I was busy building mine. My phone buzzed again. The next phase was ready. Now, I picked up my bag. Designer, though they'd probably never noticed. Shall we discuss the changes coming to Anderson Corp? My board meeting starts in an hour. Your board meeting? Victoria's voice rose hysterically. That's our board. Not anymore. I handed each of them a folder. Inside you'll find the details of your severance packages. Generous considering your performance records, but I believe in family obligations. Even if you never did. Marcus threw his folder across the room. You can't fire us. This company is our life. No, I corrected him. It was your identity. Your safety net. Your excuse to look down on everyone else. But as of 9 a.m. tomorrow, Anderson Corp will be merged into Anderson Global Enterprises. My company. My rules. And what rules are those? Uncle Philip asked bitterly. First, merit over nepotism. Victoria, those deals you claimed credit for? I have documentation proving your assistant did most of the work. She's being promoted to VP of Operations. Victoria made a choking sound. Marcus, remember that environmental initiative you blocked last year? The one that wasn't worth the investment? We're implementing it company-wide. In fact, the analyst who proposed it is your replacement. You're destroying everything we built, Uncle Philip whispered. No, I said firmly. I'm building something better. Something that would have made my father proud. I walked to the door, then turned back one last time. Oh, and that little consulting firm where you thought I answered phones? The CEO you never bothered to meet? She's your new boss. I suggest you update your resumes. If you want to stay employed, you'll need to actually earn it this time. The news was still playing in the background, showing aerial shots of my buildings, my companies, my empire. The empire I'd built while they laughed at my simple job. One last thing, I paused at the doorway. Those Christmas parties where you seated me at the kids' table? The family photos where you put me in the back? The business dinners I wasn't important enough to attend? Remember them well. Because starting tomorrow, you'll need an appointment to enter any building with my name on it. As I walked out of Uncle Philip's mansion, my phone lit up with messages from board members, executives, and business partners, all congratulating the newly revealed CEO of Anderson Global Enterprises. 6 years of hiding, of planning, of building in secret had finally paid off. In my car, my real assistant, not the front I pretended to be, handed me a tablet showing live social media reactions. The business world was buzzing about the mysterious Sophie Anderson, the secret billionaire who'd built an empire right under her family's nose. Should I cancel your dinner reservations, Ms. Anderson? She asked. Given the circumstances. No, I smiled, watching my name glow against the night sky. I think I'll celebrate. It's not every day you get to show your family exactly who they underestimated. The next morning, I arrived at my real office, the penthouse suite of the Preston building. The same office where Victoria had once bragged about her corner office with a view. My view was better. Marcus tried calling 7 times. Victoria sent desperate emails about family loyalty. Uncle Philip's lawyers attempted to schedule meetings. I had my assistant send them all the same response. Ms. Anderson is unavailable. As per company policy, all terminated employees must schedule exit interviews through HR. Sometimes success is the best revenge. Sometimes the simple secretary becomes the CEO. And sometimes, just sometimes, your name on the tallest building in the city is the perfect way to show your family exactly what they missed by looking down on you for so long. A week later, I received an invitation to the next family reunion. I had my assistant frame it and hang it in my office, right next to the Anderson Corp stock certificates I'd accumulated over the years, each one a step toward today. My response was simple. Unfortunately, Ms. Anderson is too busy running her companies to attend. But feel free to look up at the skyline and think of me. I'm the one at the top. After all, they'd spent years looking down on me. It was only fair they finally had to look up.